Well, welcome everybody. So glad to see you back for yet another Q&A here and kind of our closing ceremonies for the 2022 Thriving Farmer Flower Summit. And so glad that you are joining us. And I'm going to give you guys some stats here in a few minutes. So how many final attendees are, there's still people signing up. And this is called the Summit Wave, where typically on the day after the summit, we have actually almost as many hits to our websites as we do in some of the previous days beforehand, just coming up to, just because so many people learned about it. And it was a weekend. And so now it's Monday, they're back in their office and oh my gosh, I forgot I missed that. So if you're joining us tonight, you don't have to miss it. Grab the all access pass and you get lifetime access to all the presentations. But yes, let's go ahead and look at some of the analytics right now. For number of countries, that's always a really, really fun one to see where people are coming from. Let's see here. Now I can't find that stat. Well, let's look at it this way. Right now, we still have 385 of you watching presentations in the website. So that's always good. And I think we had today around, 15, no, that's actually right now, 1,500 page views right now is going on too. So it's just the different places where people are watching from. But Penelope, good to see you. Sunseeker Flowers, good to see you. Go ahead and give us where you're listening from and just in the comments so we can when we answer your questions, we know where that's going on. But I want to introduce all the different people we have with us. We've got Jessica back again for a second night. We've got Becky from Becky, you're on the East Coast again. Remind me, it's Massachusetts, right?
Massachusetts, Western Mass.
Western Mass. Mm-hmm. Yep. Actually, I think when we talked, we realized that I actually lived half hour, 40 minutes from where you farm for till I was, for 7 years when I was just a kid. John, where are you joining us from?
Colorado. Actually,
Colorado.
I grew up in New York, though, out on the east end of Long Island, but I've been out here now 16 years.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. And then we got Lindsay too. And Lindsay, you remind me where you're in Ohio, right? All right.
Yeah,
Marietta. Yep. And then we've got Barbara. And Barbara's actually not that far from me too. Barbara's only 45, maybe 60 minutes away. It's funny. I was actually out today doing a co-op pickup and I was standing there. I was on the phone because I had a call and a lady just walks up to me and says, "You're Michael, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." She said, "Yeah, I've been watching the summit all weekend."
Nice.
And I was like, well, small world. So that's
I get called out all the time. I don't know why that is.
You don't know? You don't know?
No, I have no idea why I'm memorable. The kids, they don't love it so much.
Those people keep saying your name, Mommy. All right. Well, let's have some takeaways. Who watched some presentations today? And did you have any takeaways you want to share?
Okay, I am still trying to go back on round 2 of Lenny's presentation. I think she did an excellent job really covering enterprise budgeting and giving some really layman's tips on how to start that with some of those general things that we do across all of the crops. And it was almost, she gave me some cold chills because I have been living in time studies for the past year. So, I was really excited to hear how critical that is, and hearing some different insight about how she broke that down pre and post harvest and all the way through.
Absolutely. That's something on our farm we've looked into because you were growing 25, 30 crops. And sometimes we're looking at a crop and we should really dump jalapenos because the overall revenue. But then when we look at the numbers of actually how much time it takes us to plant it and then harvest it, our labor cost on that crop is literally nothing. And so even though it does take up space and we don't sell an awful lot, and because we now make fire cider we will soon be on industrial levels, I think we will be in the jalapeno business for a while now. So, but if you don't do the numbers, you absolutely don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah. Becky, any takeaways?
Not entirely. I've been with the little ones a lot this weekend, but I will say that I'll piggyback on Lenny because I'm a spreadsheet person myself.
Yep.
And that's what we do that for every crop. We have a spreadsheet and we've got our units, pre-harvest, post-harvest, and then we just break it down. And going into it, I already have a projected what I think my revenue might be for that crop. And then we'll do a post comparison to see how we did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I kind of the wrap up on that too. I mean, seed cost. I think we're looking at seed cost. We got a podcast coming out. I think it's next week where I made a mistake of saying the seed was expensive. It is $1.25 a cucumber seed. And that's kind of expensive. So, you know, that little tiny box that comes from, again, our day sponsor, Johnny's, they have fabulous seed. But the fact they can fit $400 in just that little pile of stacks is always, you know, just
heartburn.
I'm in the wrong business, I keep saying. But the numbers don't lie, is when you look at that and say, of course it makes sense to buy that seed because it's twice as productive. It's a no-brainer when you can look at it that way. Lindsay?
Yeah, I hate to piggyback on the enterprise budgeting, but that was one of the things for me that just to have it broke down really looked like Jess was saying in layman's terms, you know, to kind of, I've read about it and we do it, but I've also been working a full-time job. And so it's been one of those things that's just like, oh yeah, we'll get to it. So just, I'm looking forward to it this year. Dahlias is one that's huge for us that I know we really need to kind of dial in, and they're beautiful and I want to grow every single one of them, but just really where can we make a profit on it? And are we making a profit, you know? So dialing down to the specific number that we want to plant, and then turn around to be able to sell later. So,
Absolutely. John?
Yeah, always impressed by the wealth of information in these summits. So this is the third one that I've seen you do now, and it's just impressive how you go from just how to grow certain crops to how to grow a business. And then the diversity of topics you bring up too, like the new channel for RVers and flower farmers, the new revenue stream for them. So just really cool to see the thought process behind beginning farmers to you've had to smart farmers now with decades of experience on here. So having that diversity is a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I would like to say, John, that it's, you know, incredibly intentional. You know, we spend thousands of hours. No, I mean, we do put some thought into this and like, you know, kind of like, well, I'll go to my team and I'll say, hey, I think this is missing. Where can we find it? And they'll go out, start searching hashtags and all this stuff and say, I've got these 3 people. And we'll be like, ooh, that's really cool. That's really cool. Oh, but this one I think is already, you know, done some education around this. We can see some of their stuff because, again, if someone doesn't have a good teaching is a talent, I really feel, to actually be able to communicate across. And so being able to try to showcase those kinds of people. And again, sometimes we miss it, sometimes we don't. It is trying to look at the whole industry and saying, you know, what are all the little tiny pieces around that we can go out and share and talk about. So, And then, of course, our speakers sometimes are just that for us. Because we go to a speaker and we say, hey, we love what you're doing. What would you like to speak on? And they come up with a great topic. And then we're like, there we go. We don't even need to do the work. They do the work for us. But it is. I mean, we try to show the widest diversity too, because with flowers, there's so much you can do. I've been blown away as we've been the last year of just like, oh my gosh, people doing this, people doing this. So glad you noticed that.
I think it's actually one of the most unique sectors of niche agriculture. I mean, I have to tell you, I was a vocational ag instructor's kid, grew up in the 4-H and FFA. My 6th grader is practicing the creed and I can still beat her. But we have the ability to like also, if you can't tell, connect the art world with agriculture. And I think it's a really beautiful way to show people how to kind of bridge that art and creativity into their lives, into their gardens, into their homes. And I think we all have a little bit of that in us, which is why we see so many people really gravitating towards the floral industry.
Yeah. There's so much diversity that can be done within it.
Mhm.
And I think we don't realize how many billions of dollars the floral industry is. It's massive. And I was talking to Roz this morning. It's one of those things like wedding flowers. She says, she told me about a 28,000 pound wedding they're doing. I mean, guys, think about that. Think about the money that's pounds are what, 1.8 to US dollars. I forget what it is right now. But it's a lot of money. But then also the suddenness too of funeral flowers.
Yeah.
And how she was able to move into that and be able to, again, make people's event by going to a person died. He had a beautiful rose garden, and they went and used his roses from his garden for his funeral. I mean, that's really great.
I think that's beautiful. And I think that's a untapped sector of the floral industry, even on the design side. I would love to see some flower farmers get into the funeral work. Sympathy work is beautiful tribute, and we grow some of the prettiest things. I think that there's real movement for opening up and making that connection right back to the farm.
Maggie, you joined us a little late. Sorry I didn't see you there. Did you happen to have any takeaways?
Oh gosh, there were so many interesting talks. I really enjoyed Steve and Gretel's talk. I visited their farm a few years ago when I was in one of my earlier years. They hosted a event for the ASCFG, and ever since then, anytime I see them at a conference, I always try to catch their talks because I always learn so much from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they were great. Yeah. All right. I was able to find exactly. So we've got 123 different countries. I'm going to try to share a window here. I'm very sure the right window. So you can see kind of like I mean, obviously Russia takes up half the screen. So, but one of the things we did is the person we have that does our advertising was really focused on the U.S. Based only. And so actually I caught that literally just the other day, and I was like, no. Because again, with us, this is our free gift out there for people. We were like, let's change the marketing, even if we know that those people in other countries aren't going to buy, again, the all access, because that's actually how our company makes revenue off this event. But we spread out the things. We started spending money in other countries. And then it was amazing because we had 23 countries just 2 days ago. And then when I said, let's spread it out, boom, it hit India. In India, we were bringing in, oh my gosh, amazing amount of people. So again, just seeing Africa start to light up, South America start to light up. And I basically said, anyone where if they have English language on their phone, let's start going after them just to try to, again, get the global aspect of this and reach as many people as possible. I'm trying to see what that country right there in the middle is. Which one is this? I don't know what that one is right there. Anyway, maybe someone can tell me. But the Philippines was incredible. India was incredible. Pakistan, amazing. Ireland, we had Finland. So it's always interesting, click down in here and look at, and now it's starting to, for some reason it's froze up on me. Well, there it is. We'll have to kind of go off that because I can't figure out why it's not working. But to kind of see just the breadth of where we're reaching, and just people all around the world are learning about that. It's absolutely amazing. Hagerstown, supposedly Pennsylvania was the top city. Now, I don't think there's that many flower farmers there. There's got to be like a VPN base there. I mean, the only thing you got to look at is there's got to be a VPN. The highest city that I think was active was like Nashville, Chicago. Dublin was a big one for some reason. But those were kind of the top cities that we were looking at. So again, it's always amazing just to see how we get this out and kind of the global aspect. Obviously, this wouldn't have been possible 10 years ago. And just to kind of see, how it is still possible now. All right. Well, let's kind of do some Q&A. So we kind of gave the, kind of our takeaways. Did you guys have any questions that you saw that you wanted to kind of answer? I don't know if you guys got hit up on Instagram today or anything like that.
You talking specific to our talks, Michael?
Specific to your talks or just general? I'm going for both of them.
Okay. Becky,
I
you
was
can go
looking
ahead.
through that list, and there was a question about bed sizes.
Yes.
I was just pondering because we're doing planning right now. But basically, the question was, how do you determine your bed setup? And I look at that. I kind of look at it backwards, as if, how's the flower going to leave the field, and what does harvesting look like? So for us, most beds are between like 30 to 36 inches. It's also so we can reach half the bed on one side, and then when we cut back on the other, we can reach the other half. Another thing that might determine your bed width is what you have for machinery. Maybe your tiller's 30 inches wide. Maybe it's 27. So I think equipment come into play, and then what does harvesting look like, because that is so labor intensive, and you want to set yourself up for efficiency from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all when we teach this topic, which is basically setup. We talk about every time you put a path in a field, you lose growing space. The other flip side of that, the wider the bed, the harder it is for airflow to get through the bed. So I know a farm that's set up on 96-inch centers on their tractors, and they're running 12-inch tires. That means their bed is 7 feet wide. Again, they're going for minimum tractor tire strips per field, and they're doing 200 acres of vegetables. So again, they're a very specialized farm. I mean, they've broken axles because when you try to stretch that far, they're not really meant to be like that. But it is very interesting to kind of think through this on that aspect. It comes back to how long your beds are too. Steve and Gretel were talking about 400 feet in some fields. We don't want to go over 100 foot before we have some sort of break. So we either will just actually skip 2 or 3 feet so we can walk through that area. Or again, it also depends on the size of your farm, because I like to plant an entire bed with a crop too. I don't like to have, like 25 feet of lettuce, 25 feet of spinach, 50 feet of radishes. I'm talking veggies, because the radishes are the only ones that need a cover on them for and the other ones are going to come out like a week earlier. So it's always trying to figure those out too, of again, so for a very small flower farm, if you're 1/4 acre or an 1/8 of an acre, then maybe you do want to have 25-foot beds. But again, Steve and Gretel, because of the volume they're doing, the 400 feet seems to work for them. So, but yeah, again, if you're no-till versus R-till too, that's going to make a difference too. But the thing is, because of the prevalence of the 30-inch bed in market gardening, I think a lot of flower farmers have moved to that 30-inch too, just because for all the equipment seems to be set up for that. And there's some of this really small stuff. Unless you move to bigger tractors and then everything's set up on all sorts of stuff. So, yeah.
It varies out for us too. So for dahlias, we do 2-foot. We do 2-foot planting, 2-foot walkway, so we can kind of maximize that. It's just that you've got less air. We have an airflow issue right now, so we're going to wider rows. In our tunnels, we experimented originally with setting up I think we were on 30-inch beds in the tunnels with 18-inch walkways. But the girls are in. That's easier to harvest. It's easier to plant, to tear out. But our hoops and our staking is how the support, everything's not set up for that. So we're kind of, we're still in that. Our second, third tunnels we ended up doing on 4-foot beds, because that's just how our netting was set up. Everything was kind of standardized that way.
Yeah.
And we had less rows to kind of eat and maintain. So we've kind of put around with it, but yeah, I think Becky's right. Just kind of finding what's right for your farm and, for your system and the people that are working for you.
Yeah. And Lindsay too, you're U-pick too. So some of your stuff is U-pick. So you also got to think about the customer. Customer's not going to stand in an 8-foot path. It does take that balancing act of actually learning to be able to walk that 8-inch path. So the customer will never get there. So we can't
Yeah, we have our space. Space isn't an issue for us as far as and I know it is for some people. So we have a field that we can, we could stretch our paths out. But when we had the U-pick up, we intentionally did 7-foot because it was really good for our mower. So we did 7-foot grass paths. Our beds are 4-foot. And part of it was perception too. We wanted to feel bigger, when the customer's walking through and they're in a acre field of flowers versus having that condensed what could have been in half that space or less. But yeah, they don't want to bump into something. They don't want to get, wet, from the flowers bumping up. And then even for our events in the evenings, we have 200 people there. To be able to have a field to support that many people, it kind of needs to be that wide just for their comfort too.
All right, stop right there. 200 people on a U-Pick night?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was wild. The first night that it happened, we just do them limited events. So we do a sunset U-Pick, and we make kind of a big deal. Lots of people where we have, we tell them to come, bring a blanket. We have live music, food trucks, and it's just kind of the whole, just hang out and pick flowers. And some people do it as a date night. Some people bring their kids, set up cornhole boards, and just kind of make it a fun evening. But yeah, I wasn't sure if anybody was going to show up, and I called my dad, like panicked, like, get down here, you have to park people. It's like they were showing up everywhere. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yes. Well, I think that could work quite well with my farm pizza night that I want to start doing. Anyway, someone asked the question, what is a grower's bunch?
Oh, that's a fun one.
It's what we determine a bunch to be. Yeah, that's a real fun one. Based on the grower, it's kind of what we determine that bunch to be. And I have talked to big, real large flower farms in California. And when they say grower's bunch, that's what they keep telling me. It's what we determine it to be. It's different by crop. It's kind of when it's coming on. Sometimes stuff is more branchy and thick and you're going to get less stems. Quite honestly, it's very hard with grower's bunch. I know when we use that, we're usually going in the opposite direction. Like it's way more than 10 stems because it's something really little. But I've also seen it used the other way. So I did hear Steve and Gretel were doing like bloom counts on Lizzie's. I think that's an excellent way because it's a really accurate visual for the buyer. We use grower's bunch sometimes. I try to limit just because I feel that is a really hard thing to quantify in the mind of the buyer.
I personally don't sell anything in quantities of grower's bunch. I do everything in 10 stem bunches. I prefer to just adjust the price up and down rather than change the number of stems because I find that to be easier. So I do everything in bunches, meaning 10 stem bunches.
Okay. Anyone else want to jump in on that? It's a loose term, is what I'm hearing.
It is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It tends to be for us things that are multi-stemmed, where it's like feverfew. I guess that's kind of one that's coming to my mind, or it doesn't have one main stem, and we're just like, cress or something like that. Just sometimes greener we do in that way as well, but yeah, no real standard. It's just sort of like, does it look like that value? I don't know if that's the right way to do it or not, but.
Right. And I also see that used a lot of times when a grower has a crop coming on at the very early season. So it's hard to quantify those 10 stem bunches. I think it's a good thing to get away from, just because I think we can do a better job of representing what our unit count is. Whether you're going to stay 10 stems, 5 stems, 3, like count them out and tell people. Or if it's the bud count or bloom count. I thought that was an excellent way to attack Lysianthus, because I know some of our early cuts have oodles and oodles of blooms on them, and it's really hard. Like if it's a 10 stem bunch, I'm filling the back of somebody's Subaru. So if you look at it from that approach, I think that's excellent. We're definitely going to look at that this year.
Gotcha. That's a great question. Answer. So someone's asked, Carol's asking, you used the term SOP yesterday. What does that mean? That's standard operating procedure. And I'm actually going to go ahead and pull some SOPs up because I know I love SOPs. If I had the right SOPs for a living, I think I could really get into it, even though I hate being in front of the computer. But this right here is our salad spinner. And again, this is one that has to be, it's also a food safety one. So there's a little bit more in there. Then typically with an SOP, it's great to have photos. We don't have photos in our SOPs yet because again, we just don't. But you can see we've got the main steps laid out in here. And then this is what I like right here. At the bottom, exactly how long it should take. And then when we updated it. So we always try to put that at the bottom as exactly, whoops, does not want to do that. But then, and so, yeah, so there's a method to the madness of writing these. We have an 8-step process that we take people through. This is a wash and pack area. And again, the note is that this is not cold weather shutdown. That's a completely separate SOP. So this time of year, they're following this SOP, then they follow a second SOP. And again, there should be pictures with this one. But you can see, again, there's other linked SOPs in here. And this is so that I can have this on the wall. And when the crew doesn't do this, I can be like, guys, this is the protocol that we follow. This is what you agreed that you knew you understood. Why isn't this happening? And again, we're all busy, so they don't have to say, Michael, what am I supposed to do with this again? They go back to the SOP. And again, these can live in a folder. We've also made these into Airtable checklists with a QR code. So someone can walk into a building on a farm or the cooler on our farm, scan, and then start doing the check. Then that automatically sends the email to me that they submitted that. And I can then, without having to walk out and check and say, oh yes, they did this, this, and this. And the cool thing about Airtable is they can snap a picture. So at the end of the SOP, they snap a picture to show me that they left it looking like they were supposed to. And that way, when I find dirt on the floor, I just have to realize it's probably the kids. So
I am dumping everything into Airtable right now. Like while we speak, I've fallen in love with the ability to build out the exact database that our farm needs to run off of.
Yeah.
And giving different perspectives through dashboards. Wildly amazed.
We haven't started messing with dashboards yet because I know that literally just came out. But I will say this summit would not be a summit without Airtable because literally the summit Airtable is massive and it's got everything in it. And so basically, like when I got ready for this live, I went click, click, click. Here, who's going to come on tonight. Here's some questions we might be a good fit for us all. These are things I need to talk about. Here's our totals on our, the donations to Echo tonight. So I can see all that kind of information lives right there. So yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, they charge you per person and it's $20 a So we got real creative about how many people are in our Airtables, but it's incredible. We really like it. There's some other questions here. Anyone else here use SOPs? Want to share anything about that? All right. Question here. Do most of you use a CoolBot system or did you purchase a walk-in flower cooler?
I have both.
I use a CoolBot.
CoolBot and
Same.
it's in the back of an old seafood freezer. That's what it was. The truck was in an accident, but the body was good. We took the body off and that's what we use.
Yep.
I have a walk-in cooler. It's similar to what you'd find in like the back of a restaurant.
Yeah.
I got it at an auction, a bunch of old panels for very, very, very cheap and put them together and then put a CoolBot inside that.
Yeah. Super easy to do. And there's a couple ways you can do a CoolBot. So we took, like you were saying, Becky, 2 different truck bodies. We have an ice cream truck body. We have a Swan's truck body, I think it was. We also bought the panels. You can also take like an old 3-door display cooler, cut a hole in the end. If it's broken, cut a hole in the end and stick the smallest air conditioner in there and use a CoolBot on that as well. So again, you can start small and work your way up. CoolBots are not cheap. I mean, if I told you actually how much it costs to make those things, you all would be very upset you're not in that line of work. It is a SARE grant, though. I mean, like, the Sustainable Agricultural Resource Center, it was one of the most successful SARE grants ever because, again, it changed cooling for small farms. Absolutely, completely changed cooling for small farms. But, yeah, great product. Again, we have 3 of them running.
Michael, do you have the wireless sensor that sends the nice little updates to your phone? Because
Yes,
that
I
was
do.
that was one of my Christmas presents like a year ago to my. Yes, I was really good and Santa brought that.
Yeah.
It definitely gives peace of mind when you can watch that historical data, check the temperatures of your cooler regardless of where you are. Because I have been there where I have had to give away way more lilies than my bank account wanted me to because I opened a cooler that was far too warm. But yeah, we actually have an old Papa John's refrigerator that is our professional, runs with a condenser. I have to call a refrigeration company once a year to service it. We don't really know. It just works. And then we have the CoolBot, which we built in addition off the end of our pack house where we do all of our designing, and we have a door on either end so that we could do a first in, first out type of system, and monitor that way. And you know, I really love my CoolBot because I know how to work all of it. The other one's a little scary because I have to pay a guy. Yeah.
So, and the paying the guys is getting more expensive by the week. I mean, those guys typically won't come out. And so what we always do is just have a spare, again, it's $700, but have a spare air conditioner sitting on the shelf. And so if something goes out, I mean, it's really easy to just take it and switch the new one in there. Even if you change one every 2 years, I mean, a service call can cost $350 just for very basic stuff. Now, as your farm scales and you get like really long term and then you build brand new coolers, at that point, it might be worth putting a whole brand new cooling system in. But again, until like year 10, I always recommend CoolBots. The other thing we do is we always do a secondary sensor. So yes, we have the CoolBot sensor, the Wi-Fi CoolBot sensor, but I think I mentioned last night, Smart Farm Innovations, we have their Monit system. And so we have one of those in all our things too, because again, the amount of money in those things, I mean, our sweet potato room, our root cellar room, there's thousands and thousands of dollars in there. If you're storing, lily bulbs or, dahlia bulbs and that goes too cold, you're in a heap of trouble. So having those things allows you to lay on the beach in Mexico and know that you're not going to have any problems.
I am going to say one more thing, though. When I first started this like 10 years ago, there was no cooler of any kind. There was a row of Facebook Marketplace refrigerators and a kitchen pantry that was always covered in peony leaves when my husband wanted to make a sandwich. So, I didn't even start with a cooler right out the gate. We started with refrigerators and trying to find cooler locations. Once you feel pretty committed to this career path, though, I think that's one of the smartest first investments you can really make to kind of put your money into a smart place of growing your business.
And the follow-up question to this is it possible to do wedding flowers without a cooler?
Yeah. Okay. Actually,
I mean, I not ideal, but go ahead, Jess.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we do a lot of weddings. We have our design room is now AC. That's another luxury that we only added on recently. But now that our design room is AC'd, all of our design flowers actually stay out there. And the reason we do that is we want them like perfect and open when we're working with them. So I can hold them perfectly in an AC room. We reserve our cooler space to keep it right. Like I like to keep it around 38, 39, because I have a couple of different spots in my cooler that I know to monitor the temperature. But that's almost a little too cold for me to get anything to open up and look pretty for weddings. So if you're getting into weddings, you just need a really cold back room of your house or a place that you can just really knock the air down and out of direct sunlight.
Yeah. And that can just be a regular air conditioner. You don't need necessarily the CoolBot aspect. Nope. Just get it down to 60 degrees. What humidity do you guys like to keep your coolers at?
Oh my gosh, don't ask me right now. I'm not even sure what the last report was. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know where they are
I really
right now.
only watch humidity.
Okay, so no flower farmer really thinks about humidity. I'm sure Dave would have an opinion, y'all.
We do. We log it.
I'm sure you would.
We put it on. It's on a checklist when they do the cooler check, but I don't know what it is. And I'm actually would have to look back and see what it's supposed to be. So that's bad. I don't know.
Yeah.
I also don't know about humidity.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
No, go ahead. Now, after Christy's talk, the lean talk, we're not going to call it a cooler anymore. It's a chiller. We changed our minds after we watched her talk. She calls it the chiller. I'm like, that's it. That's what we're not calling it a cooler
much
anymore.
Better. That's
Well,
so much better.
I could have listened to her all day. I know.
We like say like, well, it's 95 degrees out. I think there's some work in the chiller to be done this afternoon.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have farm dogs that are like annoying and will live in the cooler if they sneak in there? I mean, we'll be passing by and they will get in there and they're lay all over the floor. And I'm like, get out. We need to get in here.
Yeah.
Obnoxious golden retriever.
All right. Another question here that came up. What do you think is the most important data to track?
Oh, the most important.
I think that all data is important to track. Honestly, I have a spreadsheet for absolutely everything. I have a spreadsheet for, the obvious things like budget and spending. I have a spreadsheet for just everything, the list of everything that I grow year to year. I have a spreadsheet for where everything has gone in all of my hoop houses and my field beds. I have a spreadsheet for what day I started things from seed, what day I planted them out in the field, what was the first day I sold that flower. I have a spreadsheet for how many stems I sold wholesale of each flower type and approximately how many stems of each flower went into a farmer's market bouquet. Absolutely everything. It's all important. It's really hard to get into those habits, especially in the middle of the growing season. But if you do, and you get to the end of that season and you can have that data in the winter time and year to year, it changes everything about your business because you can make real informed decisions about what you should keep growing and what you shouldn't keep growing. It's very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we started small though when we did it, because it felt overwhelming at first when we started. To track all of that initially. So we just started with like, okay, let's just track a harvest list this year, and we're track times and how long it takes, and we were able to kind of build off of that. Then our accounting software, I use QuickBooks, but so that also, it's like Maggie's saying, the more information you have, the better. The more the more you can adjust and make smart decisions with your crop planning for the next season. I would say tracking everything that you can, a little, a garden journal or however you, whether you're starting small or you're on, larger scale, anything you've been consistent with, we do. So anything we didn't know, we have that to know, or we just put it on a shrink sheet so that we know what we, didn't, or we overgrew or something this year.
So I love my spreadsheets. We have a ton of spreadsheets. I love my Airtable. I love my Airtable, but I also just snap pictures all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, at the end, like I'm planting a whole fall trial, I'll take a picture of the entire end of the fall trial with all the tags facing towards me. And then I can go zoom back in and look at those tags. Because again, if you have kids, if you have lots of visitors, those tags just tend to evaporate, I swear. Again, also, being able to go back and say, okay, what did my kale look like on September 30th last year?
Yeah.
Because I know it was underperforming and undersized. And so I can say, oh, we're actually, I need to adjust how we're venting our hoop houses to push it or to try to slow it back. And the same thing with flowers is kind of, trying to steer those crops and having that kind of visual data on that. I mean, the whole aspect of getting into growing degree days, that's next level. I wish I was there. But I mean, the corn farmers do it because I only have one crop to kind of follow. But data is, you look at these companies. I mean, the big companies, they're tracking so many different data points.
Yep. It's all on the data points. And you just have to start somewhere, even if it's just, I have a binder and I put it all of my notes, my dear diary to myself for my flower farm. If you just start at least logging daily assessments, you'll be able to see that you're capturing a lot of this. Oh, I bought that, and in the binder, I put that receipt on that date. Oh, and I planted that day. What did you do? You can start pretty basic and capture a lot of this. And then in year 2, figure out, oh, I was capturing this on the regular. Let me streamline how I do that.
I think in your data collection, taking the pictures is invaluable, because when you are just getting started out, you're not going to remember when that stalk sprouted. What did it look like? And then what did it look like when I bumped up? I think the photography with handwritten notes is key, and it goes hand in hand. When I first started, I used an app called the Day One Journal. So you would open the app, you could log into your day, and then I would be taking pictures for that day and writing my notes. Like, I sewed this, that. And then at the end of the year, you can print your whole journal. And it's just a great resource to reference. And you've got your pictures, and you can hashtag, you can database information. So when I started my stock, I do like hashtag 2022 stock. And anytime I had like a growing point, whether it was germination, I transplanted it, I planted it in the field, my first harvest, I would hashtag 2022 stock, so I could see the transition and the growing of that.
That's great. Yeah, hashtags is the next level, because then you can pull all data points for that over the entire season. So being able to digitize it too. I know Evernote, a lot of people use Evernote. I think Steve and Gretel talk about that in their talk. But yeah, being able to put those hashtags in there and just pull the data, that's the next level.
I will also go ahead. Go ahead.
The app's important because we take so many pictures. So like, I would lose stuff in my phone picture, and I would take all my farm pictures in Day One Journal just to kind of separate it. Otherwise it'd get lost with the kids.
We do the pictures with our harvest and drive. And by photographing our crops, it is really easy for us to visually onboard people, train new people at the proper harvest stage, because I can show them exactly what it looks like after it's prime, before it's prime, and when it's peak. So if you're trying to learn, I think making sure that you just grab pictures of your crop on a very consistent basis, save them by the date, put them in a Google file, and then you'll be able to see the progression of the flower and be able to learn from that when you're supposed to be harvesting. Because I know that that's a big stumbling block with so many different harvest points for so many flowers. A lot of us are very visual. Just build that out for yourself.
Yeah. And I was going to say, from a digital marketing standpoint for small farmers, as far as data points and the 3 most important, I encourage small farms at least once a month to sit down, and in this order, actually, write down the total number of email subscribers you have in your list, write down the total number of website visitors you've had that month, and the total number of social media followers on all your different platforms. So then when you go back at the end of the year, you can see what were the big home run months, and kind of realize, okay, what did I do? Was there a promotion, a giveaway, an on-farm event that triggered this big explosion, say, of email subscribers, right? And I encourage farmers to focus on those 3 main pillars, right? You got to focus on your website strategy. You've got to focus on building out your email marketing list, and then you got to focus on your social media accounts. And up to 30% of a business's profits will come off of their email marketing platform. So on average, every dollar a business puts into email marketing, they make 44 in return, right? So it's worth there's a reason why when you go to buy, say, makeup or something, they're asking for your email address when you go to purchase, right? There's a reason these large corporations are doing it. It's because it's a highly profitable revenue stream, highly profitable marketing channel for us. So focus on those 3. And then just to piggyback off of something from earlier, you guys had mentioned some on-farm events and how you have this big spike in people showing up. And I always encourage small farms to make their on-farm events more than just an event to make it an experience however they can. So if that's like inviting food trucks into the local area, and if that's bringing RVers in, if that's like there's a local farm that does roasted peppers every Friday with a food truck there, so try your best to make it an experience for your customer, not just an event. One more example, I had a farmer that was he would do a farmer's market. Like he would just have his farm stand there. People would come on Friday afternoons, purchase whatever, and then leave. And that was the whole experience. He kind of thought about it a little more and actually brought in other similar but different growers and producers in the area and made it a farmer's market right there on his property, along with food trucks and live music. So that made all the difference for his revenue streams and how effective his Friday markets were.
That's great. Yeah, that's great feedback. I mean, the event thing and making it an experience is something that we're really looking to do. And again, with all our coolers, we have these great big open sides, and we've talked about getting a local artists to do some murals. Cool. So that way people can come out to the farm, because again, we have people 6 days a week here, and we can put hashtags on the sides of these things and really encourage people to say, snap a selfie at the farm with one of our things. And, we'll try to do a monthly giveaway or something, again, just to push more people so that we're, become that more of a known place.
Yeah, it's amazing how much that's evolving and how important it is to have a place where people can sit and take pictures with them or do selfies on your farm, and having your logo strategically placed on that mural, or, even those face cutouts for kids where they come up and they take a picture, there's ways you can make it more than just a shopping experience, but a full family experience on your farm.
Yeah. So people are talking about, Brooks saying, do any of you use a CRM like Salesforce? Typically Salesforce is way too much for, maybe there are some farms that do. If you're looking for an actual CRM, HubSpot, I've used that. The free version is pretty robust. I think most of us, though, are just using our email program. Like we use ActiveCampaign, which does a fair amount of back-end stuff. It's not necessarily a CRM, but it has some of those features in it. What are you guys using?
Are you talking about for like email marketing purposes?
Well, I think CRM. So CRM is more like
saying more for like customer relations?
I think, customer relations, I think, is what they're asking for.
So, we're running most everything just through our own email programs. I do use a little bit of a sorted free program to help us have better flow and continuity with a few hands in the pot. And that's a free program, so that's why I use that. But that's really all that we have that we're working off of. Everything's really us. I mean, you email us, you get us.
Yeah, I think that could get really complicated quickly, especially for small farms. More and more of these platforms are starting to become CRMs, not just email, but even Monday.com, a task management piece of software, it has CRM capabilities where you can put in maybe a lead and then trigger emails out to them, trigger text messages out to them.
Wow.
So and you'll find that even in schedulers like Calendly, you can find it in MailChimp, so it's all starting to blend these days. But really, it's about maintaining that customer relationship, right? So if you are in talks with a wholesaler, right, and things are going well, you want to maintain that relationship, not have them drop off. So that can be as simple as an Excel spreadsheet for you as you manage that lead, right? So keep it simple.
So all of ours, I guess, runs through Klaviyo then, because with us, all of our orders are really .com. We're a .com farm. So everything runs through our web interface. And then all of that's through our email campaigns that are linked in through Klaviyo.
Yeah, absolutely. Kara says, Maggie, do you interpret or have help interpreting your data? And then Sherry's asking, can you sell copies of your spreadsheets? So I think the spreadsheet question is, a big one.
So my spreadsheets are extremely basic, and I just use Excel or Google Sheets is what I use. There's nothing too complex about it. I interpret them myself. Everything is extremely basic. Like my seed starting spreadsheet just has the date that the seeds were started, what size tray they were started in, how many seeds per cell, did I cover them with vermiculite or soil, or just things like that, location where I started them. And then in terms of my sales spreadsheets, my business is primarily wholesale focused, which makes my data tracking easier. So it's really easy for me to know how many 10 stem bunches I sold of zinnias, because I'm selling them all at the same price point in the same bunch size, things like that. So when I'm doing it for farmers market, it's a little bit more complicated, but because my business is so wholesale focused, that makes, I think, the data tracking a lot easier. So it's just absolutely very basic. This is how many bunches I sold and how much I sold them for. And then I keep track of how much money I spent on the seeds, plugs, bulbs, and I'll do just an estimate of labor hours per crop. That I could honestly use maybe a better tracking system for. I know there are apps that you can track those labor hours better. It just gets kind of complicated. I just do my best estimate there.
Absolutely. Lindsay, you said you were using QuickBooks. What version are you using?
I Intuit, the online version. And I used it from day one, and it's just now starting to find more information on how to use it. I mean, every time I would call somebody to help me get it set up, they would come, and I mean, I paid an accountant to come here, and she was like, whoa, like she was teaching herself, but there's a lot more resources now for it. And it's like, yeah, we run everything through it. And I use Squarespace for my website, and we can now link, they have an app that links the sales to that, which makes the tracking a lot easier. But yeah, that's been a huge time saver, and a lot of good information comes out of tracking through that, now having 6 years of data in there. So
absolutely. Yeah. Maggie, an app we use for tracking time is called Now Then. This is what the interface looks like, and basically allows you just to click that when you start something. You can even like pull your crops in there or put in harvesting, and there's, again, it's like a few bucks, I think, but allows you to chart it and see exactly what you do throughout the week. You can have your employees do it too. That's something you may want to check out. Someone asked, can we mail a check to Echo for the donation? Absolutely, Andrea. They take checks. Unfortunately, because we've already closed the giveaway, it's not going to work for the giveaway. But yeah, feel free. They need all the help they can in what they're doing. So absolutely. And then where do you store all these photos? Roger's asking. We use Google Photos. So I'm a 2-phone person, unfortunately. There's a couple of reasons. I mean, obviously we have an online business, so we do a ton of videography. This is the dedicated videography phone, but this is my personal phone. But we have them both synced to the same Google Photos account. And then at the end of every day, you come in and hit that upload, and it automatically uploads them off my phone. And then I hit delete, and it cleans off my phone. And we have a terabyte, I think, of photos from the last actually 15, 16 years. And so we can go way, way back. The other really, really, really cool thing that Google Photos does, and I'm going to show you here, photos at google.com. Let's see here. Yeah, everything's PG-13. Just gotta be careful.
Wait, what? I'm worried.
No, I was just... So this is my Google Photos right here.
Oh, look at the baby.
Yes, this was today. I couldn't help myself. She is adorable. Yes. But what I love about Google Photos is you can do, it's not 100% because it pulled up a picture of some apples. But it does do a good job of pulling most of what I'm looking for, or at least getting one photo. Because again, I always take 3 or 4 photos of the same thing. And so then I can just dive in and say, oh, what else did I take on that day? And it will literally open up the rest of those photos from that day. So you can, this is that entire day in photos. So it helps you find stuff a little bit easier. Yeah, this was a fun one I took.
So here we go. Here are two bees.
Sleeping.
So did you know that bees will just curl up on the top of a
They're
flower?
lazy.
Yeah, they are absolutely wonderful. So anyway, that's what I mean. There's a lot of other reasons you can search by the location search feature in Google Photos is not as great. So I can't say Chicago and it pulls, or it won't give me like a map of the United States and you can like zoom in. That's what I wish it would do. That'd make it so much easier. But it's cheap and it works really, really well. So that's what I use. Does anyone else use something different?
We use like a bazillion folders within folders in Drive. We have things by every month on the farm. We have the farm photography where things are captured here. If we have special product launches, we'll have pictures for that. We have like a whole dogs folder. Based on, we have all of the weddings catalog. It makes it easier for us to break it down into folders. And there's a lot in there, and it's not a perfect system, but everybody that needs to get in, it's a language that we kind of all can speak and navigate and figure out where we need what. So we're not anything fancy. It's just a deep web of Google Drive folders, but definitely at least cataloging your farm month by month, and then having years. You want to see your own success and progression. So do it for that reason, if nothing else.
Yes, absolutely. Who else? Someone else, sorry. A great question here. This is for John and Lindsay. Anyone else can jump in too. You mentioned average age is 50-year-old woman. Our demo is an older community. Suggestions for marketing social media for an older demographic.
Well, as far as the different social media platforms, Facebook is a great one for older demographics. And then kind of, when we're talking about like 60 and above, Facebook's a great one. When we're talking like, 55 to 25-year-olds, then we're talking more Instagram. And then when you go 25 and under, it's more these newer platforms like TikTok. But be mindful of TikTok. If you're not already posting a TikTok, I do encourage farmers to do it. If they are looking for more national or international reach, depending on what your products are selling are. But just because it is fast up and coming, there's more people hitting the TikTok domain than the Google domain, which used to be the #1 domain for years.
Wow.
So yeah, they're outpacing Instagram and all these other social media platforms. So something to think about for those more national or international farms that sell products that way. Yeah.
I just saw that Instagram announced they're not going to be allowing TikTok to be put. Their Instagram's not going to allow TikTok to repost videos, or people can't repost TikTok videos or something along those lines. I don't know if that's coming out, but for me, marketing, I use my email. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and I have an email list that I send to every week. And the Facebook does tend to be our more local community. I have a lot of local followers on Instagram as well, but I tend to be more conversation on Facebook, just because I think they are a more local following for us. I get a lot more conversation and engagement on there. But yeah, I would say marketing to those people, specifically marketing to them is to me having a conversation with them and hearing the things they're telling me about why they're coming to my UPIC and all of those. And that's sort of what I pump back out to them, because I know they're all talking. I just did a survey at the end of the year, and I just did a random question of asking people like, what is what's something they're concerned about right now? And it was, I think I listed like retirement, money, COVID, I had a whole list of things, and retirement was a big piece of that. So that information for me to know what my customers are concerned with, and how I can kind of help them in that way with the events that we do to, kind of ease into a transition or, dealing with COVID, whatever the stress may be. So.
Yeah, if you're not doing customer surveys, you need to be. You absolutely need to be. We do a 1-question survey after people sign up for our CSA. We say it's something to the line of, what was the biggest reason you signed up today, or what brought you to this place to sign up today? And you're going to get right there that visceral thought that was going through their mind. And that is incredible copy at point of sale, because obviously that's what was going through your customer's mind when they made the sale, what made the sale. So, again, the one the other day, new year, new veggies. Boom. That's an ad. That's a headline for an ad that we should have started running last week. But again, the summit came up. But absolutely, make sure you're doing that surveying, finding out what your customers are thinking on everything.
Yeah, you have your own test group in your customers. And unfortunately, I don't even want to admit how long it took us to realize, just ask them. They'll tell you what they want. They'll tell you what they've liked. They'll tell you what they don't like. They'll tell you what they would be interested in. Anything that you're questioning, you really should be doing small experiments all the time in your business. I wonder what's an assumption I'm making about my audience? What's something I assume? And then ask them, figure out how to get that information back. I really hope you guys can't hear my kids that are the door.
Well, we don't hear the swearing, so that's good.
Oh, God, thank goodness. No. It's apparently pretty traumatic at bedtime. I hear stomping on the stairs, but if you can't, we're game. Yeah, it's just really asking them and figuring out how to apply that. Because I think you kind of don't realize the golden goose that you have with your email list, with your customer base that's following you on your social media accounts, the people that are coming to your website. You can do automated check-ins with them on your website. So there's lots of different ways that you can ask these questions to them and figure out what your next direction is, and know that you've kind of already pulse checked your audience.
Yeah.
Michael, can I ask you, how's that
worried
question
on-
getting to your customer? Oh,
Sorry, we had overlap there. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Okay.
Then I'll get to, I know exactly the question you're going, and I'll pull it up. I'll show it to you, but go ahead, Lindsay.
Oh, what was I going to say? I know that I always, sometimes I'll get in my head and think, I don't want to survey them, or they're getting a survey for everything, right? Every time we buy something, they want us to review it and take the time, and it's a lot of time. And also, I had to get out of that mindset because it's super valuable information, like Jess was saying, just to know what they will tell you. And when we had an amazing response. And Charlotte Smith always says, if they unfollow you or unsubscribe, they're not your customer anyway, because I was worried about even doing a weekly email, and it's like, if they're going to unsubscribe, early on, I would be afraid to bother them with a survey, but do it. It will be valuable for you. So that's all.
Yes. And to that point, if you're not doing a weekly email, because here's the thing, there's people that are just a fall apple orchard, and they came to me. I did a keynote at the Great Lakes Expo here a couple months ago. And we were obviously chatting afterwards. And those are the funnest things. So I would say do the presentation is great, but the little conversations afterwards are so much fun, because that's where you actually hear, again, my customers, because again, we have an online training company, the exact things they're struggling with. But they were like, well, what do we do? I was like, in January, you can just start going to the different apples you have. You can show pictures of pruning. In March, you can show the pictures of, hey, stuff's starting to wake up. You can show the flowering, the blooming. There's so many different things. You can show the farm dog, the farm cat. You can ask people, what's your favorite apple? Hey, which do you like, the regular or the sugar donuts better? Those are the kinds of things you can start doing. But let's go. I wanted to show this survey, because I think what you're asking, Becky, is what software do we use for that one question survey?
Yeah. Is it something they get in a confirmation email? Is it a pop-up after purchase? What does that look like?
Yeah. So let me see if I can open form here. So we have a shopping cart that we use for our CSA. And again, it's not ideal. We're trying to desperately get away from as fast as possible, because it's not built for what we're doing with it. But what it allows us to do is, after the success page. They call it success page or the confirmation page. Do you want to use ours or do you want to use your own? And we say we want to use our own, and then we put them to a link. And here it is right here. And again, surprise, surprise, it's Airtable.
Yeah.
And all it is, and again, we could put like our logo up here and all that stuff. We didn't, mainly because I just needed to get it up one day. And so basically, yeah, that's what we do. And then basically they put their information in and they hit submit. And then, I think you guys can see it here. It takes the back end. And again, we literally just implemented this. We do all sorts of other surveys, but literally I did this 2 weeks ago. And again, this is the time of year we're not bringing in a lot of CSA members. But you can see there, all we wanted to see is new year, new veggies, healthy and local. Love the idea of weekly, fresh, local, responsible raised produce. This is really interesting. They used responsibly raised produce. They didn't say organic. They didn't say natural. They wanted stuff that was responsibly raised. So that's another thing. We'll start using that little tidbit right there in our marketing. And that's what our customers are speaking.
Yeah. Now you know their language. Now you can talk right to them.
Yeah. 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 Here's a good question. What is a reasonable length of time to expect your flower farm to turn a profit?
What's the reasonable amount of time for a flower farm to turn a profit? Okay, well, I can't answer that because there's a lot of variables there.
Well, I mean, what's the definition of profit?
Yeah.
Our farm didn't turn a profit this year. In fact, I think we ran the books $23,000 in the red. But that was expected because it was year one for us, and we invested $70,000 in infrastructure.
Wow.
So if we took out the infrastructure, we actually made a profit. But again, the infrastructure is what makes the farm work. And again, it's one of those things, like, it really depends on what scale you're at too. If you decide I'm doing 1/8 of an acre, I'm just buying a germination chamber, some lights, I'm doing stuff inside, some ground cloth, you can turn a profit $5-6 grand the first year.
Yeah.
Real easily.
Yeah.
Again, yeah.
But I don't want to leave that question without some sort of like guide, right? Like, how do I know? Well, I would say if you are trying to start a business from scratch and you're really putting every effort in, you want to be profitable, I would say in your first 3 to 5 years. Okay. 3 to 5 years is where you need to turn a profit. I love you very much. Good night. Sorry. It was a late straggler coming in.
I agree with that. I think that sort of 3 to 5 years for businesses in general is pretty normal. My business was more similar to Michael's in terms of the first couple of years. I did a lot of very expensive investing in equipment and infrastructure. And then I turned a profit for the first time in year 3. And then now I'm at a point where my annual expenses are more focused on labor and less on infrastructure and equipment. So it's a totally different ratio and balance of where my money is going and where it's coming from.
Yeah. And back to that, I mean, like this year we ran our Square reports, and we love Square because of what the data it gives us. 580 different product variations we tried this year.
I don't even want to look at ours.
We tried everything. You know, do they want jalapenos by the single? Do they want them in 3s? Do they want them in a quart? Do they want them in a pint? You know, like pickles. Do they want them in the quart? Do they want them in the pint? Do they want them a spicy pickle? Do they want, and it's just the language sometimes we're changing. Well, we know 480 of those didn't work, and those are scrapped. And now we're moving forward with the 100 we know that are the right things for us. And we're going to be infinitely more profitable because we're not wasting space on all that other stuff. So your first couple of years, and again, it really depends on how fast you want to scale. Again, I want my business to be $1 million in 5 years. And that's the dream we're going for. And again, I'm crazy. I completely admit that. But that's kind of me. This is the second business. I really have a kind of exact vision of what we want to build. So we're balls to the wall again, just going for it. But I don't suggest 90% of the people listening do that because it's completely not practical, and you go bankrupt and you're going to go crazy. But again, it's kind of the crazy twisted mind I have, I guess.
No, I think this is why we get along.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to just keep in mind your own individual goals for this year, for your 5-year plan, for your 10-year plan, and not just think about it in terms of just sales and expenses, but is the farm working for you in terms of what you want your life to be like? And it's like a whole picture, kind of holistic thing too, not just strictly about the numbers in a year to year.
The holistic aspect, because that, if you're not thinking the big picture and like, what am I actually building? There's no reason. And you're gonna go off the rails. I've seen so many farmers go off the rails because they were all about the profit. We had a farm who we worked with. They were located in the South, in a very affluent metro area. Again, they were doing incredibly well. In year 2, he paid back all his investment for the entire farm build out. And it was $100,000 at least. But in middle of the year, he basically kind of just gave up and was like, well, I'm not just bringing the profit I want. But in kind of retrospect, looking at the big picture, he only built that farm because he wanted a tax write-off on the land because of some things. And so he didn't the farm wasn't him internally. It wasn't like his, this is what I want to do with my life. I'm building a farm. It was more of just like this thing he was doing. And when he didn't give him that return that he wanted in the short term, boom, it was gone. Yep. Even though, again, of all the farms I've worked with, he was in the top 5 or 6 of just like 0 to 60 and making a profit really quick. But because it didn't come down to more of the lifestyle and the long-term vision, it just didn't work out. And he just moved on. So to that, Maggie, right there, it's so key to do the long-term holistic planning and spend the time. Maybe if you're farming with a spouse, do it with your spouse. If you're doing a small team, have those key people in the room. Weekend to the mountains. It needs to be done.
Go to Disney. I am setting everything up so that I can go and have a great time with my kids and totally check in. And that is part of my priorities this year. And, we have to make priorities and we have to figure out what that looks like. One of the common things I've kind of noticed in some of the threads and, talk to me about work-life balance, or I'm feeling overwhelmed. And, I think there's one thing maybe we should think about as we go into this next growing season is maybe not multitasking. Maybe we just focus on one thing and we get that done and then we move on to the next, okay? And that one thing can be real small. It can be returning an email or a phone call. It can be a big project, but focus on one thing at a time instead of trying to do a few. Because if you're trying to do a few at the same time, nothing's going to get done well. And you're going to end up in that constant, everything just drags on and I can't get out from under it. So at least you can close your day knowing you made really good efforts and hopefully clicked off one or multiple things, but focus and just one thing at a time. We can only eat the elephant one bite at a time. So don't get overwhelmed with that, and balance is very relative to each of us. I think back to what I was before a flower farmer. I was still this crazy and this busy. That's not going to change. So for me, balance is going all the time and I'm happy that way, but we're all different. We kind of have to figure out what our own balance looks like. And if you're not choosing the things that give you balance, maybe that's where you need to start focusing that first line of attack for this year. So just a balance, guys, and that's only directed by you.
Yeah. Well, because my balance for what I'm 90 hours a week full bore, just because that's just my personality, AAA personality, and I have to keep busy or I go crazy. When my wife married me, she was like, "You're the weirdest guy I've ever met." She still married me, which is very surprising. But because that's just, I'm always going. She hates going to stores with me. Because I'll walk in and I'll start talking about the end cap, or I'll say, well, that was a 3-tier. Did you notice the cross branding there? But again, that's just how my mind works. And someone else that is not them, and I don't want to put that on them that they need to be that type of way, because again,
Right.
there's the reason we had 27 plus speakers at this thing is because there's so many different ways to make this work on your farm.
I think too, I want to, Michael, just the comparison trap that we get into on social media. And I think that comment of, talk about my personality or whatever, similar to what you guys are talking about. And people say, oh, well, I'm that's not how I am. I don't know that I can do this. And it's like, we all have our assets. And it's like, even that profit question or life and balance, like Jess is talking about, it's like, it is different. It's unique to each individual person. And that's the same way, you're going to run your business differently than I am. And so really focusing back on yourself and what your assets and strengths are, is what's going to make that business turn a profit. So,
yeah.
And I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think that's like nail on the head, because quite honestly, I'm a little different than a lot of people, and that's fine. I just don't really care how others perceive me. I care about what I put out. And I'm having a really, really good time in my life, living it the way that I want. And that's what we show in our business. And that's what we show on Instagram. And I think that's why people gravitate towards us, because we aren't trying to be anybody but us. This is literally how me and my sister grew up, being dorks together, trying to make it through a normal day with laughter and jokes. But that's all that we're doing, is just being ourselves. I love you too, Levon. You got to go to bed. Sorry.
And I think that comparison too, and I think we all need to realize the Instagram filter is that we typically take pictures of what's pretty, and they don't see the 99 other weedy fields that are out there. It's just, you have to be really careful at that comparison too, is because again, we've been all doing this for now. I'm going on my 18th year of being in the agricultural space. If you're the first year, it's not going to look like this. And that's completely, totally fine. And it shouldn't look like this. If it does, there's probably something, you're probably working too hard and doing something crazy. But yeah, make sure you don't compare yourself to people that are much further down the road and are just doing life differently. And we all have our own competitive advantage. Jessica is in the Shenandoah Valley, and I hate her for that because it's the most beautiful place in the world. Or one of them.
When I open up this store in the farm, you're going to come visit this year, right?
Yes. We still need to talk about the irrigation day.
Yes.
Anyway, yes. I think that's gold too. But yeah, I mean, like we each have. I mean, I was very lucky to be able to start super young and be able to have the experience I have at a relatively still young age. I mean, other people, they just had a piece of land, a very specific piece of land they started with, or, had more capital resources than others. So again, we each have that aspect, and we just need to maximize what we've got and move forward.
Yeah.
All right, John, you want to take this question here?
Sure. Yeah. So as far as it seems like this person that asked the question is getting a lot of targeted things regarding flower farmers, how it's easier to find flower farmers than it is flower enthusiasts locally. So think of your social media platform as split personalities. So for your flower business, try to only follow other local businesses. And then the algorithm will start showing you local information, local events, local posts from that local audience, if that makes sense. So, and then make it a separate account for your own personal account, or make a separate account for a different business you have. But you kind of want to think of these accounts as split personalities, because then it will start to understand who you are and what you're all about. So if you're just following local businesses in the Denver area, you're going to get lots of Denver information fed back to you. And then all of a sudden you're building all these ties and strings as to who you are and what your business represents, telling the algorithm, hey, I'm a local Denver business, right? So that's part of it. But really what it comes down to, as far as building a local following on these social media platforms, is socializing locally. So that might look like spending an hour once a week sitting down and looking up the posts that are tagged with that local geo tag, right? So whenever you post a post, I recommend you tag it with your local geographic area. So that's the region you serve, right? So if it's Denver, you want to make sure you put Denver, Colorado as the geo tag for that post. Then it shows up for anyone that follows that location will start seeing that show up in their feed, right? So one, make sure your posts always have your tag for your location in it. Two, make sure you're always reaching out to different but similar local businesses that already have local audiences, right? So collaborate with them however you can. And it doesn't mean you have to actually exchange products, like physical products. That could be exchanging a post for a post, or exchanging a story, or reposting their story onto your platform. Maybe there's a local parade in town and your followers don't know about it. You can post about it, right? So you want to be thinking local, hyper local, because that's your audience. Who cares if you have 20,000 followers but only 50 of them are local followers, right? So there's some, and in my talk, I talked about how social proof is important, but that can't be the sole focus. We don't want a large following of national clients if you're a local business. You want hyper local. So make sure you invest socially in your local area. So to me, in my mind, if I was a first year flower farmer, I would build out my local flower farming page, have some pictures up there, some information about my farm, and then I would go around commenting on posts of other local people in my area. So, and it wouldn't be a templated, boring, spammy type comment or direct message I would send to these people. I would intentionally go out and comment, because in the social media world, a like is kind of like, a comment's kind of cool. You'll actually read it. Maybe you'll comment back. And then a direct message is like, better than an email these days, right? So in that order, if you just go around liking local posts, it's not going to make a difference. But if you go around commenting on local posts, people will go, oh, who left a comment? Oh, there's a local farm down the street. Oh, that's cool. Maybe I'll follow them, or I'll join their CSA. You might get a conversion right away out of it, right? So think hyper local when you're on these social platforms, and don't get caught up in the addictive pieces of channels, different channels they have.
Last night, someone said, the Flower Summit effect, because they saw their Instagram go like this, and that's great. It's great to see your Instagram grow. But here's a problem with that. So before we were deep into this business, I freelanced for a few other online businesses, and one of the businesses we worked with was Rachel Miller. So go Google her. She does teaches Facebook mainly. But she was incredible at organic reach. So she was able to get multiple people to millions and millions of organic reach posts and pages to millions of followers. And one of the number one things she talks about is the demographic you're going after, because the algorithm understands demographics. So if I am following if we're all following Jessica's page and the algorithm is going to say, oh, this page is popular with these type of people doing these type of things. Because you got to realize Facebook and Instagram follow 827 plus points on each one of us. So they're tracking us incredibly deeply, which is highly disturbing. But I think we've all kind of given up and we're just going with it now because it's so valuable for what us we're doing. But if you're trying to push out there and trying to get other people to follow you, this is why I don't like to see Instagram and Facebook follow trains, because it's training the algorithm to go show your post to people that aren't local. So think about that too. And the other thing, I think, John, too, the type of post you do. So if you do the type of post that other farmers want to see, like I see some farms put out, literally this much, and it's like, hey, we're growing cucumbers, and here's the 18 steps we take to grow cucumbers. Do you think your customer down the street wants to know that? No, they want to know that these cucumbers are in season, and they want to know a quick recipe or a fun fact about the cucumber, and then they're going to go on their merry way. So it's going to that long 18-step post is going to train the algorithm wrong for your farm. So think about that. Again, I think it's sometimes it like blows our mind to kind of think about what's going on in the background, all of this. But if you haven't seen, what's that movie out there? Is it The Social Dilemma? It's the social.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's like a little. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, some people see, again, we're on this platform, so we have to be careful what we say, but they don't see Mark Zuckerberg in too favorable of a light. Let's just leave it at that. So it's it's definitely a thing to think about, but it's incredibly effective.
I will say that I did a little holistic self on Instagram this year. I don't know if the rest of you feel this way, but especially with COVID, you feel like you live there a little bit more than you want to, and we all feel ickier when we're living there. I did what John said. I have a personal account. And if I'm on my business account, I'm doing business. I am not like snooping on other people's pages. I don't need to know what they're doing. I'm going to put in my comments. I'm going to go back and talk to people. I'm replying to my DMs and I am out. If I want to like hang out on Instagram, I'm on my personal page. And while it keeps my algorithm straight doing it that way, the other thing it does is it kind of makes you realize what you're on there doing. If you're going to be having to like intentionally only play on your own account, and you see how many times you're doing that and you're like, oh, maybe I don't want to play so much, but it just makes you more thoughtful, I think, in how you're utilizing that, because it is a serious tool and it is one we absolutely need to use, but it can be really easy to get sucked into the other side where you're one of those ghosty people. You're just looking at everybody's content. Maybe you're doing a like here, but that's not really benefiting your business. And if you're running your business on Instagram, that's kind of what your time and focus should be when you're there.
Boom. Yeah. Also, for us AAA personalities, I don't know if anyone's done the Enneagram. Does anyone follow the Enneagram at all and kind of deep dive into that?
It was on my list to do like last week, and I just haven't taken it yet.
Yeah, it's very scary. Of course you are. Threes unite. But I'm a 3 too. And so when you start to do that, when you start to really dive into who you are, I've taken a ton of personality tests, but the Enneagram was the one that literally freaked me out because it knew me so well. Again, there's a healthy side of every single number and an unhealthy side. And, for a long time, I've been a very unhealthy 3. So to kind of see that and kind of try to understand that, and again, kind of start working self-therapy around that is very interesting. But Instagram does tend to get us unhealthy people in a very even more unhealthy place because we're always doing the comparison. Mm-hmm. And so again, if you're doing for business, focus on your local audience, focus on those local aspects, and then just get off and go back to doing what you're doing.
Yeah, it's highly addictive. So make sure you're always on the offensive, not the defensive for your brand and business. Just don't want to waste time on it. It's made to suck you, and the average user spends half an hour on Instagram, and they have 1 billion people using the platform every month. So it's a powerful platform that's made to keep you on there as long as possible so they can show you as many ads as possible. So that's their whole goal. You're a user.
Yeah.
Right? You're not a subscriber. So they expect you to use the platform, and they want to make it highly addictive for you. Unfortunately, that's the nature of it. So if it's clickbait, if it's good news, bad news, they want to elicit your emotions, and they want to keep you on as long as possible. So knowing that, and knowing how precious your time is as a farmer, especially in your first few years starting up, you have to think, what am I going to post before you even open the app? Because if you open the app, you're already probably done for. So have it intended.
I love that. That is my takeaway. Know what you're posting before you even open the app. That way you streamline.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, because yesterday I opened the app and I bought a puppy without talking to my husband. Bad things happen on Instagram. So
hey, I bought a chrysanthemum course.
Yay! We're gonna grow together, and I'm so excited.
And then I wanted, the mega pack of chrysanthemum, the little things like. Anyway, it's bad. It's really bad. It's not good to get on Instagram. Kelly says she's a 3-wing 2. I'm a 3-wing 4, which is again, my wife's a 2. Again, it's if you start diving into the Enneagram, you will start to know the numbers, and when people say, "Oh," so it's
freaky.
It's very freaky. Yes.
I use just as a thing just a comment on social media, Michael.
Yeah.
The to help with like a local focus too, when I started building, I think you naturally, as your business grows, your other farmers want to learn from other farmers, so they end up following them. And you know, I just started to be pretty intentional about who I follow and you know what I want to see in my feed and that kind of stuff. But I use categories too, so like knowing, like John said, what you're going to post. I don't necessarily. I used to plan them all out so they auto post. Now I just have, at the beginning of the year, I set categories of what I'm going to post. So I have like in April, I have some what I call relatable posts where I might share something about myself or the farm or the team for connection. But that just helps give me some guidance on the marketing side and how I, you know, what I'm putting out and how I'm connecting with customers and trying to get the local business back. So back to my page. So,
and again, a social media / marketing. If you haven't read this book, you need to. And again, I don't agree with everything Russell does. He's definitely deep in marketing, but if you want to understand the psychology and a lot of about it, his trilogy, the Traffic Secrets, Expert Secrets, and .com Secrets is good. But Expert Secrets and Traffic Secrets are gold for any entrepreneur, just to kind of understand a lot of this behind the scenes stuff that goes on, and just the psychology. Gwen says John's Instagram talk may have just saved my flower season. Man, that's amazing. We've got so many awesome folks here. Just sharing. Oh, she wants to see the book again. Kelly, right there. Traffic Secrets. Make sure you write that down. I do want to do we are kind of running late, so I do want to do our giveaway. So I make sure I told you guys we would do that. And then if you guys just want to hang around for a little bit longer and talk flowers, I'm more than happy to. It is people that do want to upgrade to all access. It's a limited time. So we are counting down the hours right now. So make sure if you want to get the 25% off, you do sign up for that ASAP. We do have, it expires, and we always have the people that email us and said, but I wanted to get in. I thought about, like, look, guys, we sent you plenty of emails. We targeted you with lots of Facebook and Instagram ads. And this is, our part of our authenticity and part of our just, the truthfulness of our company is that we put deadlines in place, because if we don't put deadlines in place, it will be strung out. And as soon as the summit's over, we all take a 2-week vacation, or try to, unless we have other businesses like I do. But again, so make sure you do upgrade if you want to do that tonight. But what I did want to say is this is the first year we have done a giveaway tied to like a give back giveaway. So I didn't know how it would work. We said we got 3 people sign up, but I do want to say between like everyone who donated and our match, we will be donating $1,842.06 to Echo. So that's amazing. They literally actually just Facebooked me and just said, this is so cool. Thank you so much for your support of our mission. So again, you all, there's so many people. Some people donated $1. Some people donated $50. So it was great to see, all the people that donated. And again, this was awesome because, again, it's something that I've, again, been really passionate about, watching them give back and just support farmers around the world. So it's great to see our community coming together and serving them. So to our giveaway winner, now I got to go find that right here. Let's see here. It was 50. Roxanne Danielson. So Roxanne, congrats. There's a whole bunch of goodies in store for you. She gets an all access pass, our Start Your Farm Intensive, an hour of my time to talk about her business, and some willow sticks and some dahlia tubers from our farm and some comfrey. So congrats. You got a box coming your way and some awesome online stuff as well. So there we go. Well, why don't we do this? I know I've got some awesome people in the room with lots of experience. Let's say someone who's just starting their first year as a flower farmer, what one piece of advice do you want them to think about as they go through their season?
I'm going to say you're going to keep your own diary this year, and you're going to write everything down. The highs, the lows, the things that were like, dear diary, today I didn't sell anything. Today I sold 2 bouquets. One got knocked over in the windstorm. Probably not going to put my farmer's market bouquets on that corner of the table anymore. Today I ordered this new crop and I sowed 42 plants of this. Right. The first year I would just say, write a diary. Give yourself something to look back on. Don't overcomplicate it. Just write yourself a diary.
And I would say at the top of that diary page, because again, the first year, a lot of those posts are going to be sad. Write what you're grateful for. Write the one thing you learned that you're excited about. Just give yourself a win. Because if you give yourself a win every day, you can keep going.
Yep.
I would, even after 17 years, there's days I'm just like, what the literal did we just make?
Yeah.
I would say just remember to treat your mistakes as lessons learned. Don't dwell in them. And don't lose your sense of self.
Yeah, it's not a mistake. It's a learning opportunity.
Yes.
Yes.
We need lots of them. We need to learn a lot of stuff. So just look at that as a lot of opportunities to learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I would say to focus on one thing. Sorry, John.
You're okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
So Lindsay, when you say the one thing,
I would say to focus on. Yeah.
We'll break that down for us.
A delay.
Yeah, there is. It's unfortunate. This program does that sometimes. But when you say one thing, are you saying like one area? Kind of expand on that for us.
Yeah. So when I first started, I did a CSA, I did weddings, I did workshops, I sold wholesale. So every area or every line of that is a business within the business that you have to market, manage, look at profit, find those customers. I wanted to do it all because that's my personality. And I wished I had gone back and been like, I'm not doing a CSA, I'm just going to learn and focus on growing and maybe just sell at the farmer's market. Or if your business plan is to start wholesale, which was my one in the wholesale market, and it has not worked for the area that I'm in, because I go direct to the customer. And so I switched gears and switched my business plan up and started selling direct to the customer and focused more on like the experience of being on the farm with our workshops and, the CSA and connecting with the local community. And it's been great. But yeah, the one thing I would just say, don't try to do it all, because you see farms that have been in business, 5-6 years doing multiple things. And I talked about that in my UPIC talk of just like, are you ready to take on another line of business? Because I think that's kind of, important, because especially I never ran a business to this extent before. So you're just learning how to run a business. I was learning how to, I was trying to sell flowers and Googling how to mess a screw up in QuickBooks, so I think it's just give yourself some grace. And like Maggie said, it's there, you're going to be learning. They're not mistakes. You're learning from all of it. But yeah, that would be my one piece.
Right. Can I also just say real quick, sorry, that also remember that you are running a business. I would say find an accountant if you don't have one already. Talk to people about business if you don't have any experience running a business. Just remember that you are starting a business now. It's not a hobby anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Try to remove emotion sometimes. If you're running it as a business, try to keep the emotion out of it. Again, you love to grow these flowers, but again, sometimes you need to make the hard decision. This one's not making it, and you need to kind of move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say and I'm biased, but for farms starting out in their first year, I've noticed a lot of farmers trend towards maximizing every square inch of their farm and maximizing how they flip a bed and interplant. And I would say, it's good to be focused on optimizing the physical, but don't forget the digital, right? Because most of our businesses don't have a physical storefront. It's now becoming a digital storefront. So focus on those 3 pillars I talked about earlier. So make sure you build out a website, make sure you build out an email marketing system where you're collecting emails, and the most commonly used one is MailChimp. So you'll find lots of YouTube information on it. And then the third one is your social media platform. Maybe just focus on one of those many social media platforms out there. I recommend Instagram because you're still getting good reach on that platform, and you can get hyper local with the hashtags. But 2 of those 3 pillars you can do right now in the off season if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, right? So you can work on your website layout and strategy homepage, right? And then you can work on your email marketing CRM. So you can set that up, that MailChimp account, and connect it to your website. So those are on the back burner. Now all you have to maintain through the growing season is the social media platforms, right? And you can set up a scheduling software to do that for you, where you don't have to go actually into the platform to post anymore. You can use something called Creator Studio, which is provided through Facebook and Instagram, which is now the same company. You can go on the back end, open up a Creator Studio account, and schedule out a whole month's worth of posts, one and done. Kind of batch it and forget it kind of thing. So that might mean sitting down for an hour once a month and locking in all your social media posts so you can have that local growth we're talking about.
Becky?
I keep thinking about the first year I ever grew flowers, and I didn't know where it was going to take me. I just knew I wanted to grow. So what that looked like for me was I made a pick your own patch. And what it allowed me to do, I would hang out in this patch. I would talk to customers. I would learn what they were looking for. And then I would figure out what I could potentially offer to them. I learned how these flowers grew because I really had no idea. And I gained so much knowledge from this little trial patch. It helped to give me direction moving forward. And I think it's okay to not exactly know what you're going to do, but definitely treat it as a business. Start QuickBooks now, even if you have nothing, because you're going to learn the software. And then when you do start to get bigger or scale, you're going to have your basics down. And just, I think more so now I say to myself or others, start before you're ready. So I grew this pick your own patch just to start. I didn't know where it was going to go, but it took off from there and really sent us down all the sales channels that we're at now.
And something I wanted to say, Becky, to follow up on what you said about the QuickBooks and stuff is we now outsource that, but you need to understand it before you outsource it.
Absolutely.
If you don't understand what a profit and loss is, if you don't understand all the ins and out of the banking and stuff like that, and just be able to kind of read down through the bank statement and recognize all those charges. I was talking to a friend of mine who runs very large business. He's in the event space, murder mystery event space. It's probably a $5 or $10 million business. And he said every single accountant he had stole from him somehow. And again, I'm not saying that all the bookkeepers out there, again, there's some great people out there, but if you don't understand this stuff, you can get in some really hot water really quick if you can't look at some of this, know what's going on. So again, we do a lot of value adding here, and the first couple batches, we were doing it, and then we passed it to someone else just so I can understand the process and what's behind it, because it's something I need to just kind of like, it just allows me to see down through and understand what's going on.
And to piggyback on that, as far as stats and documenting, if you start acquiring this data now, when you want to do something like buy a farm, you now can show your progression and how you're scaling and prove yourself with stats that you're worthy, or you can pay this back, or starting from nothing is good sometimes. So don't feel little, because when you grow and you look back, you're going to feel good about yourself, but you're also going to prove to financial people, hey, we're going somewhere here.
Yeah, absolutely. Because right now we're going out for some different funding, because again, with the USDA at 2 to 2.5%, it's crazy not to go out after money. It's crazy. I mean, we all know that's subprime right now, and lock it in when you can. And, being able to have those numbers and being able to do projections and say, here's what this year was, here's what next year looks like, and this is why we need the money. We need to buy glass. We need to buy probably $10,000 or $15,000 in glass. We need to buy, potting soil. These are the things that are going to allow us then to scale in the coming years. And again, if you don't, we've gone through a couple different lenders. Stewart is one of them we've used for some small stuff. But for some of the bigger stuff, USDA can't be beat typically if you know your numbers and can. It's a little bit of a process. There's like 8 or 10 different spreadsheets you got to put out for them, but it's well worth it.
So, Mike, I want to add something. I know I was only supposed to have one, but I have two things.
Right.
The other is to separate your finances as a beginning farmer. I read a book The Business Boutique.
Yes.
And there was like the one thing that stuck out to me, and I did it the first year, and I was so grateful that I did because, I had a business account, and I know it, like, I felt confused in the beginning, but I literally just put a chunk of money into my account when I started my business with, and I did not use my personal card, even when if it was like I was running the Lowe's and it needed just a couple dollars, because I got into it where it was like I was reimbursing myself out of this account for this bag of or T-post. So just keep it separate, and you will be so grateful that you did. And if you're doing it now, it's fine. Just stop. Don't ever do it again.
Yeah, it's January 9th. We only have 9 days to account for.
Right.
But Lindsay,
you can start scratch.
That is one thing that drives me nuts. And I say, well, how much did your farm make this year? Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
Like I ran it, and I was like,
yeah.
Opening the bank account is free. Getting a debit card for that account is free. And then even getting yourself, an LLC is really simple. And because the thing is, when you set up as an official business, farms are typically tax exempt so that you're not paying the 7%. When you think about your dollars now go, an extra 7 or 8% is amazing. Yeah. You're not paying those thousands of dollars and things. Yeah. And if you run it like a business, at the end of the year, you can write off so many things. You can write off meals. You can write off, mileage. There's so many things you can write off in your business. And again, and one of the things on paper, our income can look really, really poor. Like, you're like, wow. But our lifestyle, because we have businesses, is incredibly fulfilling. We can go out for dinner and we just talk about the business, and now it's a business, a dinner, that kind of stuff. So again, if you want to go on vacation, you find a conference in the South. Unfortunately, this was virtual, so I can't all invite you to Florida for a conference. But again, it's one of those things to think about that allows you to really grow up quick. And as you said, know exactly what's going on and be able to hand your accountant very clean books. And yeah.
Yeah, as we approach taxes, I have never in my life been so glad that I did exactly what Lindsay said. And it was the first time that I've never had to go through and pull out anything, because you know how you get stuck. And this was the year I was like, then I'll leave. I don't need it. If I came to the store and I didn't have the company card on me, then I'm going to go back for the company card. And I've never been so thankful for that in all my life, because it can quickly get messy. So you're better off if you just separate right out the gate.
Yeah. Yeah, we teach this in our I think it's in the Start Your Farm Intensive, but we talk about, if one of the first things of any business is go out and get credit accounts at all these places too, so that they're then sending us a statement at the end of every month, which is then very easy for us to go back and look at all these different things instead of having to take that card every single time. Granted, you have to be very careful if you're very limited funds that, one of the things about a debit card is if it's not in the bank account, it doesn't get spent. So you have to be, that's why for brand new farms, I don't like to see credit cards, just because, again, it can get out of hand very quick, especially when, the dahlia farm is showing all these beautiful pictures of these dahlias that you need to buy tubers for. So, just there's also all tips across there to make sure you set it up right. Yeah. And Lena, it's not just an LLC. It's actually if you're set up as a farm. So LLCs are just a business type. A farm entity typically is just tax exempt. Depends on the state. It really depends on the state. Like in upstate New York, all our even vehicles, we never paid tax when we bought our farm vehicles. Here in Ohio, they looked at me and laughed when I tried to pull that one. So it really depends on, what state you're in, but do make sure you talk to your local extension or something like that, and they can help you get the right forms and stuff to set up your farm right. All right, folks, any final questions? Go ahead and drop them in the questions there. Again, folks, this has been so much fun. Thank you all for coming. I think this was a really good discussion. I'm glad how we mixed in a lot more today on the business side, the marketing side there. That was a lot of fun. And I'm just running this back through and see if there's any good questions we missed. Next door, John.
Maggie, did you want to put your address out for everybody? I said, Maggie, do you want to put your address out for everybody so they can buy your spreadsheets? They can send you a check for your spreadsheets.
Well, I think my contact info is on my talk, so people can hit me up that way.
Let's see here. Just saying, John, have you played it all with Nextdoor? That app?
Not just for my local like HOA and stuff like that. I've been on there just to look real quick, but yeah, I mean that's just another platform where people are electronically on a social type platform where you can communicate, right? So maximize all of it. Yeah, and find the one that works. That's why it's nice to record your numbers, right? So
yes,
and have some tracking. Even Google Analytics, if you want to get really technical, and attach that to your website. See where these leads are coming from.
And Google Analytics is so easy to set up. I mean, the original setup can be a little challenging, but after you've got that original one set up, grabbing the code and dropping it on your website is so fast.
Yep.
And again, the data is invaluable because I can look at my data and say, oh, I had actually 12 visits from Nextdoor, so it's worth the weekly post we put on there.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Lisa's asking about beds. Shaped beds, how you make shaped beds. There's so many ways to make shaped beds. Are you using a bed shaper, Jessica?
We do. We use a bed shaper. We were using plastic in our rows because we have 7 field acres, and we were doing row plastic just like veg farmers. And I actually hate the plastic like a lot. I don't like pulling it out. I don't like finding it. I don't like not having a real good sustainable way to get rid of it. We looked at going with the, I forget what it's called, but the biodegradable plastic. And our growing season, it did not work because I was trying to put it in whatever I used, I needed to be able to use it across the board. And for us, it could not overwinter with our spring crops. So it was breaking down under row cover and it was a mess. So we made the investment and just we still run the bed shaper, but we put row fabric down and we have all of that pre-burnt on template spacing. And then we just reuse that. And honestly, I get so much life out of that. I feel like that is my most sustainable option for the large areas that we're growing.
Yeah. We are using the biodegradable too. And we put in a fall lavender. And all the plastic just shattered on us because again, we have so much biological activity. So we'll be switching to landscape fabric. It's again, if you do it right, it'll last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I hate the microplastic aspect of it, but
I know
it's one of those things you've got to look at. Again, what's a profitable farm or what's a sustainable farm has to be profitable first. So we have to kind of look at that profitability aspect first.
Well, and I think you can also balance that with other things that you're doing on your farm because beside those big fields, I worked with NRCS and did a carbon sequestration program where we gridded off a whole section and I was able to get all of the cut woodies I wanted that were Virginia natives through that program. So it's not going to be perfect, right? We do the best we can. We pick and choose.
Exactly. Yes. Balance it. I mean, I love people that, always comment on my post, and I'm like, well, I'm doing this. I've got bees. We put in all this habitat, that kind of stuff. Is that I'm, bringing all the leaves from the set town and diverting that from the landfill and the wood chips. People always find something to pick on.
Just to add something to the beds, I also, it's kind of related, bringing it back to sort of data and tracking stuff too. I use landscape fabric a lot, and it's another kind of easier way. So my field beds are all 4 foot by 150 feet. My hoop house beds are all 4 foot by 100 foot. And I use 6, 9, or 12-inch spacing. So I have a spreadsheet that shows me that when I'm doing all my crop planning, my seed starting schedules, I have in my spreadsheet just how many plants fit in each of those beds, whether they're in the hoop house or the field. And then I also have an estimate of how many stems I'm going to harvest off of a plant. And that's just another way of having standardized beds, spacing and bed sizes, and then having that data. It's just another way to just get more of a consistent database.
Yeah. Standardization. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Becky or Lindsay, what are you using?
I have a bed shaper as well, raised bed shaper, and we will till and then use the shaper, no plastic on top. And I'm moving away from landscape fabric and such, trying to get quick crops out in the field, and then maybe slower crops under the tunnel where we have better weed management. So that's where we're at. We still do some fabric on slower growing crops, but
yeah. I find if you're on a brand new farm, sometimes you need that fabric for the first couple of years if you're dealing with a heavy weed bank.
Yeah.
The year we bought this farm, the year before, they'd used 11 different herbicides because they'd been no-till for 60 years. And so when we came out of that after a year, the explosion of weeds was phenomenal. Again,
oh yeah,
so many weeds. So we are dealing with that seed bank right now. I mean, we're dealing with things like Johnson grass. We're dealing with vining milkweed, which is kind of like a bindweed on steroids. And then we have bindweed. And then we've got, all these other fun things. So we've got some, we're dealing with it. We didn't have any places the leeks went completely out of control this year, but that was the only crop we lost. But everything else looked pretty good. So, but as the more years, I feel like you can get that weed bank down further and further, and then you can start ditching the landscape fabric, which again, I'd love to get there.
Yeah. Just, when we bring in our compost, usually
we only use landscape fabric for the first 3 years.
Oh,
that's totally fine, Lindsay.
Sorry. Just a quick little tip with testing compost. If you're bringing it in, I might throw it in a tray, or I'll throw it somewhere where it's going to germinate and see how that performs. And then that's how I've been kind of figuring out, what are we putting in the tunnel or what are we not? Because weed management in the tunnel is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Lindsay?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm delayed. I feel like I'm the only one talking over people. We don't use landscape fabric in the tunnels. We just use, we just have a Manus tiller that we actually use for the rows. And then we don't have a bed shaper. The first 3 years, typically on any new field, we use plastic, to have holes in it, but I don't like planting through it. It tears your hands up. It does suppress the weeds. We do use fabric in the U-pick beds just for maintenance reasons and, to kind of labor control. So, but no fabric in any of the tunnels.
All right. Someone's asking, I don't know what to do about blackberries other than spray it. Tillage. Blackberries to me is something you need to till, and then typically we use a harrow and a spike harrow, something that actually pulls the roots up, is really going to be the best way to get rid of that. Because otherwise, they're a disaster. Yeah. And again, with that, if you're on brand new land, sometimes you're doing a lot of tillage up front so that you can stop doing tillage. Again, it's one of those things that every time you run that chisel or the tines through the soil, the cultivator through the soil, it hurts and you can smell the carbon burning off. But once you get those perennial weeds out of there, then you completely stop tillage, and then you can really do a thing. But if you don't, you're going to be fighting those weeds. I mean, the bindweed, the nutsedge, the Johnson grass for the rest of your life. So, yeah, there we go. All right, Jessica, have you seen this book? Have you read this book?
Traction. No, I have not, but I'm making this year's reading list. Is this one that
Yes.
needs to go on it?
Yeah. Well, it's for like when your business starts to get a little bit bigger.
Oh, this sounds very appropriate. Yes. Who wrote this? I need to pin that down.
Yeah, so that's a fabulous book. I mean, it's great. Yeah, I think that would really help you. For the people that are like the first or second year with their farms, the E-Myth. Every brand new farmer, and even a little bit in there, I try to get through this at least once every 2 years. That's a top book as well. And then if you really want to go back into the psychology of the customer, you want to read Why We Buy by Paco Underhill. He also wrote a book called What Women Want, and it was all about the psychology of women shoppers. It's fascinating read just to go through exactly, because what Paco did is he was the guy behind putting 100 different cameras in a retail store and having people sit there and watch customers go through stores. And just really like, why did they stop at this display versus this display? Why did they pick that up on the bottom shelf versus the top shelf? And so he put it all into these books, and it's fascinating information for us who are selling direct to people. And if you're doing stores or, retail aspects, it's fabulous. So highly recommend those 3 books there. All right. Well, I think we should wrap this up. We've gone for 2 hours. I really appreciate you all joining me for this as this wrap up. And again, super thankful for everyone who joined us for the summit. We had a total of 23,966 people sign up for the summit, which was awesome. We beat last year's. And again, the thing about the summit is, there'll be other viewings and stuff like that in the future that will have more people join. So it's always awesome to just kind of know the reach that that's going to have to the global audience, and the lives it's going to impact, and all the flower farmers that this session will, birth, as it were. So, and again, a huge thank you back to our speakers, because again, without our speakers, you all amazing speakers, putting your heart and soul into your presentations and really sharing behind the scenes of what it actually takes to run a flower farm, or, in your case, John, what it takes to build a huge Instagram following and do that marketing aspect. And then obviously a huge thank you back to my team, because again, with me having the farm full time and being on that, without them, there would be no summit. So a huge thank you for all them and all their work that they do. So again, thank you all so much. This has been a true honor to kind of host, and again, learn 3 days of all things flowers. I'm always learning new things, and it's great to hear all the different perspectives out there. So thank you, folks. And we're actually now considering what 2023 summit is going to be. So that's kind of, my team was already, putting feelers out. I'm already putting feelers out to people and saying, what do you think about this and that and the other? So if you have ideas, make sure that you let us know, because again, this is something we put on every single year, and we can't wait to share next year's already. So yes, thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Michael, so much for having us and putting this together. It's been an incredible resource for, I know, everyone who's checked in over the past 3 days, as well as us speakers. We have had a wonderful time kind of really digging into what we love within this beautiful flower world. And I want to say thank you. Thank you to everyone who came and listened. Thank you, Michael, for putting this on. And thank all of you guys for being my flower ride or die tribe.
We peaked that again. Flower what?
It's the ride or die tribe. Did you not notice I even wore my real outfit just for you today? I came dressed like it was the Flower Farm Met Gala. Closing ceremonies just for you. I was getting all dressed up.
I should have worn my. I actually have like a nice coat I wear when I go speak, and actually this I love this shirt, and I wear it because I love it. It's actually my wife's grandfather's, and he passed it on to me. And again, I wear it to kind of remind myself of him because he unfortunately passed a few years ago. But it's just like, you know, the thing I wear all the time. So it's like, yeah. So, but I appreciate you dressing up because that means a lot.
Well, just for you, you know, and everyone else out here, really.
All right. Flower Rider. All right, guys. All right. Well, thanks a lot. We will see you next year. And again, our farm company puts out a weekly podcast. We do all sorts of other mini courses, and we have our Small Farm University, which is where we train farmers how to build profitable and strong businesses. So all sorts of other things. You'll obviously hear from us in the emails over the next couple of weeks. But so yeah, just make sure you put us in your primary tab, but don't drop us in the promotions tab. But make sure you get our emails because we always have awesome, cool things, and maybe even further collaborations with some of our speakers from the summit about cool things, because there's always things behind the scenes that we're like, ooh, here's a cool angle. We might be able to try this. And so make sure you are on our email list to hear more about that type of stuff as well. So again, thank you, everybody. And we will see you next year.
Bye.
Thanks, Michael.